Hello and welcome to another Pit Village podcast. I think we're on episode 6. Episode 5, episode 6. Yeah, I want to tackle another hard topic today. As always, not as emotional as last episode, but still a very hard topic. I want to talk about dealing with gambling addiction. Now, do you like a bet? And are you okay with putting your life up to chance? And, an honest question here to anybody listening. Do you recognise that gambling could be a problem in your life? Again, welcome to the Pit Village podcast, sponsored by Prospect 27, pay monthly websites, £30 a month, unlimited pages, managed for you. Check us out, prospect27.co.uk. Again, today we're going to speak about gambling addiction. You've heard all the terms: problem gambler, compulsive gambler, the pathological gambler. And, there's various different, sources online that sort of categorize these in different ways. Now, I believe that I become a pathological gambler over time. I could not spend a second of the day where I did not have a bet. It is one of the most destructive addictions that you could ever face. And this is coming from a family that, my uncle is an alcoholic, another uncle, heroin addict, and father, other uncles. A lot of the family suffer with addiction and alcoholism. And for me, it was gambling. And I fell into it at a young age. I started gambling. We had a caravan, basically, at Fort Park in Cleethorpes as I was growing up. And I got a little nightly allowance to go on the slot machines when I was a teenager, essentially. And, it was my own choices, I suppose, once I'd sort of hit adulthood to continue to going into the bookies and all that sort of stuff. But by 24, I was £32,000 in debt. I just took the £15,000 out to start a business, but the previous sort of 15 grand, that was just all through gambling over the years. Or in full-time employment, there was no reason why I should be in all that debt. It was simply because I was taking out the debt, continuing to gamble, continuing to spend lavishly, continuing to get my wage, and just blowing all the money, essentially. So, yeah, I never took no responsibility. I always quit my jobs. And it put me in a short-term, get-rich-quick mindset. Like, I just want to get rich overnight. I want to put £500 on, win a grand, put a grand on, win 2 grand. But it weren't even that. At the end of it, I think I got to the point where I was actually addicted to losing. I couldn't stand winning money. I wanted rid of the money. Money was the problem. If I had money, that was the issue. You become allergic to money when you're a gambling addict, because it's an alleviation then of all your problems, because you recognize that gambling is a problem eventually. And, if you've got no money, you can't gamble. So it sort of makes sense, doesn't it, logically, as daft as it sounds. So, yeah. But because of the choices I've made since being 18 and continuing to gamble, and, I then had to start a business in a load of debt and all this, and inevitably failed. And, that was an accumulation of all the choices that I made as a gambling addict, as somebody who would gamble compulsively, would go to sleep with bets on, wake up to check those bets, and then make another bet for breakfast, essentially. And it wouldn't matter what the bet was on, it would just leave. I needed that anxiety. I needed the risk. I needed it. It just become a way of life. And I think for many addicts, it's an alleviation of his responsibility. We convince ourselves, look, I cannot stop, and I'm an addict, and da-da-da, and it's a disease, which is all well and good, and people do need help. And, I do think addiction is a big problem for many people. And, of course, I don't know, because if you're not willing to make a change, and you do not want to make a change, and I've seen this time and time again, it don't matter how many resources is out there, that's, how much support that you've got. If you don't have no ambition to have a better life for yourself, then you're not going to have a better life for yourself. And for me, I've always been an ambitious person, and I recognise that gambling will holding me back eventually. And um, I recognised all this stuff, stopping gambling was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, and it took years to finally pack it in. I didn't feel the ramifications of my actions until many years later when I'd actually stopped gambling and I realised, whoa, I'm in all this debt and I'm still paying now for the actions that I had previous. So it was a hard lesson to learn, but it was a good lesson to learn, and I'm glad I learnt it young. I could have quite easily. I feel sorry for people who's already built their lives and then they get into gambling, because if you've got a house and you've worked all your life and da-di-da, then I would hate to think what that feels like. I would hate to think what it feels like to just lose everything that you've ever worked for. And I know people do it. So let's discuss how you may be able to stop. I mean, I once asked in the street, basically. I once stopped in the street by a fundraiser. She asked me to donate. And I said, oh, no, I'm in an IVA. And she was like, oh, yeah, you're young. How have you done that? Well, I was a gambling addict from being, a teenager, essentially. I was 32 grand in debt. 24, so is what it is. And she just quizzed me about how I stopped. She was like, a son had the same problem and da-da-da. And I couldn't give her a definite answer. I was just like, it's different for everybody. And for me, I have put a lot of thought into this. I was very bad with gambling. I mean, I would spend £100 on a horse while I were at work. And then I'd be sat there thinking, oh my God, why am I at work? I've just lost 100 quid. What's the point? Christ. And I quit my job and then da-da-da. And again, it's an alleviation of responsibility because money becomes a problem. And if I've just worked for a full month and I get paid £1,200 and then I spend £900 in a day on gambling, why would I go back to work the next week? It's just pointless. I mean, there were once I did that. I spent £900 or like £1,200 wage. I'm like, oh, I'm going to need this £300 to just get to work and buy food. And then I was going to put £200 on a 9 to 2 horse. I'd have got 1,100 back. I'd have been even essentially on what I'd have bet for the day. And I didn't bet and it won, and in all honesty, that doesn't feel good. Like, obviously, laid in bed, you want to scream. Like, you're thinking, oh my God, if I'd have just put that one more bet on, if I'd have this and that, da-da-da, then you're justifying why you should continue to bet. So it's just oh my God. Then the loans started coming in before I knew it. Boom, you're still earning your wage, you're getting your loans, da-da-da. And as much as it killed me, all the loans and the debt and this and that, like, that weren't the worst thing. The worst thing was, again, no responsibility. I was at home with mummy, not building a real life for myself, not wanting to move out, not wanting to take responsibility for my life and save up some cash and go and build a life for myself. It was, I think I needed the risk. As an entrepreneur, we need risk, but the risk I was taking in gambling, and it was only substituting the risk I was wanting to take in business that I'm taking now. So, like, I've got no reason to gamble now because I've gambled on myself. I run a website design agency. It's tough. I've built something and it provides me with what I need. The risk associated with running that business and being in work for myself and all that sort of stuff, that outweighs the risk of, oh, I'm going to put this on this horse, because that's an external risk. At least the risk is on me. I'm betting on myself. And that was the best bet that I've ever made. And I don't need to bet on anything else ever again, because I've got my lane now. And this is what I feel it is. This is what I feel it is that people need. They need to recognize, like, why am I gambling? So, first off, let's just get into some literature. I've been looking at some interesting things online, and let's just put some things into perspective, because a lot of people, they're in denial and they don't think they're a gambling addict, but they are. Like, they're gambling all the time. They're posting it on Facebook. I've won this, I've won that. Well, why don't you post what you lost? You don't post what you lost, do you? Because it wouldn't make sense to do that. So let's go through some of the literature that I found online. That's just some signs that somebody may have a problem, and we can see if this sounds like you, or if it sounds like somebody that you know. Somebody that you know might need help. They might need somebody to talk to. They might need somebody to question them. If you know somebody who is gambling and you know that may be a problem in their lives, then definitely question them and definitely bring it up, because in all honesty, the thing with gambling is it's a very lonely addiction. There's nobody there. There's nobody else there. And this is one of the things that come up in this article, actually, at the first point. So it says there are fundamental emotional reasons which can contribute to the development and vicious cycle of compulsive gambling, including overcoming social isolation by visiting betting shops or casinos, to feel a rush of adrenaline and dopamine as a happy brain chemical release. So again, as you're betting, and you're winning money, or even if you're not winning money, the risk associated with that loss, it's like smoking crack cocaine. Numb, unpleasant feelings and problems which cannot be easily resolved. So I suppose that's like repressed emotions, boredom and a desire to pass the time and relax and unwind after a stressful day. So that's how things start, I guess. And it says, while these emotional factors may contribute to a gambling addiction, the following may be a more visible signs of a gambling problem in either yourself or someone that you care about. And trust me, I suffer from all of these. I would sit in the bookies day after day, my mind completely just focused on those horses and what have I won and have I this and that. So it says a preoccupation with gambling and loss of interest in other aspects of life, such as ignoring family responsibilities and focusing only on the results of gambling. Wow. Loss of control and being unable to manage impulsive urges to gamble even when the odds are against you. Increasing the amount of money used to gamble in order to pay for lost bets or to experience the same thrill. A negative impact upon relationships with those closest to you. Losing a partner as a result of gambling addiction is very common due to the strains and burdens that problem gambling places on a relationship. Problems within the workplace, which could include an increased workload, absence from work, or a general lack of concentration, which makes it difficult to complete tasks efficiently. Concealing the amount of time and money spent betting from family members. The secrecy that is often involved in problem gambling leads to a lack of trust and often further problems at home. And denial that you have a problem with gambling is a great concern, as the first step to recovery is accepting that you have a problem. Now, bear that in mind for anybody out there right now who's thinking, oh, I gamble, but it's not a problem for me because I can control it and then this and that, da-da-da, and I only bet this much, and oh, I don't know. It's like, I know there's a lot there that I've just read out, but this one me, I would spend hours at the bookies. I mean, and then it obviously would come online. But you haven't got the urge then to control it. You're like, bet, particularly if it's on your phone. And then, like, I get a new job. I go on sick. My mind was preoccupied with gambling. I didn't have the concentration to progress within my work. And it were only when I quit gambling that I started taking my career seriously. And I got a job as a recruiter. And I did this and that and da-da-da. And I was reading books, was learning sales, and really trying to focus on my craft. So all the effort I was putting into the gambling, I started putting into myself. And while ever I was gambling, it like I fall behind in the jobs. Like I say, I go on sick, I get a new job, I leave that job, I get a new job. It was just a self-destructive cycle, and it puts you in a very short-term frame of mind. You don't really want to win. All you want to do is gamble. The point is not to win money, because you could never have enough money to feel okay. The point is to feel okay, to have that little bit of anxiety and, that bit of risk. And it's like, I don't know, it is very strange. It's a strange addiction looking at it from the outside in. But when you have to gamble to feel okay, that's where it gets people. And I mean, let me just get this out there, because these advertisement agencies or government bodies, whoever's in charge, that, like, whoever's in charge that allows this to be advertised to people, gambling, screw you, because I still get advertisements to this day, and I've been clean. And I say it's clean. I'm sober from a gambling addiction. It's sobriety to me. I'm clean. This is like a heroin addict or an alcoholic, in a period of abstinence. I don't gamble anymore, but I still walk past the bookies and it still screams my name. And you still get and when it's advertised to you on YouTube, when you're already in this, like, you're tired and you're watching YouTube and it's advertised to you, thinking, oh my God, well, I don't need to be triggered. It's like advertising heroin to an heroin addict, or advertising cigarettes, basically. In my eyes, this is what it's doing. It's like, screw you. If you could still advertise on YouTube and all these places, like, I've got this primal desire inside of me to go and put on a bet that is never going to really go away. I'm doing it for that long. It's like, and then you're advertising to me on YouTube every time I'm loading 4 years later when I've not had a bet for 4 years. You're still advertising to me. Like I say, you can't advertise crack cocaine, or I know they're illegal drugs, but you can't advertise cigarettes, you can't advertise alcohol, you can't advertise e-cigs, all these things that you can't advertise that are bad for us. Like, but why gambling when that destroys people's lives and it destroys people's families, and it makes people literally commit suicide. You know, like, so yeah, screw you, advertisement bodies, whoever made that decision to allow that to allow gambling to be advertised to people. Oh, come and get your free bet and all this. Screw you. I don't want my free bet. I want to stay sober and stay on the right path. So that is a big concern for me. Wow. So, I mean, for people out there who are struggling, or somebody who's struggling, you can't stop gambling, like, just please, your life gets better when you stop. It's like smoking crack cocaine. That's what you got to consider, that going into the bookies and making a bet and putting your money on the roulette or whatever it is, making that coupon and da-da-da, however you justify it to yourself, like, it's like smoking crack cocaine. That's all you're doing. The same receptors, the same dopamine levels. It is very intense. And essentially, all you do in the end is you're blocking out your feelings, you're blocking out your emotions, your social life suffers, your family, your relationships suffer. Your life is on hold until you stop. Until you tell yourself, look, this is enough. Your life is just on hold. And like I said, people have asked me, how do you stop this and that? Like, to be fair, there's not one answer out there. Like, again, they'll say, oh, you wouldn't have a problem. It can't be severe as you make it out. My gambling's worse than yours. I've got to do it all the time. Trust me, my credit rating were amazing. And the only reason why is because I was taking out loans every 6 months to feed this gambling habit. Again, £12,000 in debt by a 24-year-old. Just pure gambling. And I've been in full-time work and not had a bill for 4 years. So I should have had loads of money. But no, again, always month after month back to square one. Just a normal wage coming in, all the loans squandered away, just on horses, and essentially a pathological gambling habit. That's what it was. And I stopped because at the time everything else in my life was in order. I started listening to these people online, Grant Cardone, and they're telling me cash is trash, you need the cash flow, you need business, this and that. And I'm thinking, well, what would I do if I did earn 100 grand? Would I just spend it all? Would that then make me just fearful of money? How do I actually earn money? How do I go into the marketplace and earn money? And then that become the risk then. I wanted to get into business. And that's what I was running from at all times. My own potential, I didn't want to take the risk and put myself out there and say, look, this is what I do, da-da-da, and build myself a little business, because probably just low self-esteem. Didn't think it would be just fear of what other people are thinking, all the regular stuff that holds us back. And my reaction to that, to all the stability and living a life really that I didn't want to live, in a job and all this, da-da-da, normal life. I want to be in business. I want to work for myself. I wanted to take the risk. And I never did that. And I substituted that for the gambling. So I always causing myself these problems then. And it was like, at one point I realised gambling were never going to be enough for me, never going to satisfy me. And again, watching people like Grant Cardone and these people online that taught me sales and all this, and allowed me to develop my skills, just sat there watching YouTube videos and reading the books and all this sort of stuff. Getting back into reading books and Think and Grow Rich and all this stuff. It's like you start thinking, okay, right, yeah, I need to get my mind right again. I don't need, go back to college, get an online course, digital marketing, do another online course. I didn't know how to make a website, so quit my job, start a business. Simple. That was my way out. People ask me, how did you get out? Well, I went into business instead, and I bet on myself. I took on all the risk for myself. I quit my job. Well, I quit gambling while I'm in the job, actually, because everything was going okay in my life. My last bet was Donald Trump in 2016. He won. I got £500 on a £100 bet. And I was like, right, I'm done. See, I take that out. I've got my little job. I love the job. They love me. I'm doing well. I was staying there like 6, 7 o'clock every night. One day, argument with manager. tell her to, do one. I screwed it up for my son, essentially, walked out, embarrassed, never went back. And then I opened my business, and, did the feeling of gambling come back? No. If I walk past the bookies, I'm like shaking, thinking, oh my God, let me, but other than that, you just got to have some discipline and say, well, look at the mess I were in before. So I did get myself into a mess with it, to be honest. And I think that's obviously, once you've hit rock bottom, it's easy to start saying, right, well, this is enough. And most people, for what it is, they'd ever hit that rock bottom. So, yeah. Again, started a business, bad foundation, I was loading debt, and I paid for that. My business, essentially, I lost my business after the first year. I crashed and burned. I had to go back, move back into the mother's, give up my house. And, that is what it is. And never went back to the gambling, but went back into business, and now I've built something for the long term. I'm back out of the mothers. I moved to Leeds. I'm independent. I've got nearly 100 customers who pay me on a monthly basis. And I've opened a podcast. So, like, here we are today. I'm not a gambling addict, but I think I'm still addicted to the risk, to that adventure. Like, I need stimulation. I've got a web design business. I've got a podcast. I'm already looking at creating a new podcast for a friend and bringing him and, creating a podcast network and learning all the audio and building something out of this. And inevitably, there's going to be new businesses that I open. And, I work with over nearly 100 customers, and I sort of do my best to advise all of them on the marketing and go above and beyond with each of those as in par with the service of my business, I guess. But it's like, it's all systems go. There's no off switch, and that I don't need to gamble. And that's what I've taught myself, that I need to read books. I need to improve on myself and learn new skills, and buy new equipment, and then learn how to use that equipment, launch new businesses, work with my customers. Like, I provided myself with a larger purpose now than being like a self-confessed gambling addict. I was no longer happy with that, just putting my life to chance. I wasn't happy, not taking responsibility for my actions. And I weren't happy with the burden that I put on everybody else. Like, if you're gambling, you're being selfish. Like, I know, yeah, it's hard. Well, the hardest thing I ever did, stopping gambling, or the hardest thing I ever did. People say, oh, just stop, just don't do it anymore. Like, it don't work like that. But what you have got to ask yourself, if you are gambling all the time, is why? Like, why are you gambling? Do you want to be in business? Do you know that you've got unfulfilled potential that you need to work towards? And is it just an easy excuse for you to give up before you even get started? Like, are you replacing the risk you should really be taking with yourself by creating your own business and going at it and being in the battleground? Just are you replacing that by sitting in the bookies or sitting on your phone? Is it just an easy excuse to give in? So those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Like, why do you feel the need to gamble? What makes you have to bet on what makes you have to bet? Why do you need to do it? Why put your life to chance? Is it just a lack of self-belief, lack of self-worth? Because I know if you're gambling your money away, you do not appreciate your time. Because what about the time it takes to earn that money? What about the future? What about kids? What about a family? What about your partner? What about a career? And if you don't think that is going to suffer, those will all inevitably suffer with the gambling. And I don't know how I scrape by getting decent jobs, and because it makes you so nihilistic when you gamble. Without gambling, I'd have done a lot better in life. I didn't have to do that to learn that lesson. I could have learnt the lessons easier in business. Could have gone out, acquired the skills, sorted my life out. And, for anybody out there who is gambling, at the end of the day, the decision is yours. And I'm not being all huffy puffy about it. Just stop this and that. But as hard as it may seem now, gambling becomes part of your physiology. Like, it literally, it's how you're set up to see the world. Your point of view on money changes. The value of money just becomes meaningless. Like, the thing is with gambling, if I earn $2,000 a month and you earn $5,000 a month, we're going to get the same results, because I'm going to bet £2,000 and you're going to bet £5,000, and we both bet 100% of his money. And just because you bet £5,000 don't make it any more severe than me betting two, because that's 100% of my money. So it's like, don't get it. You can never get ahead. Like, it's always 100% of your cash. It's like, literally, I don't know, you can earn $2,500 a month or $4,000 a month, and still, I'm spending $700 a week on gambling. And it's like, we're both having the same experiences, and why would you ever put in the work to progress with something just to squander it all away? You wouldn't, would you? And that's a real loss. You're losing out on the time. You're losing out on the effort you could be putting into yourself. Like, you don't ever get out of that trap or that way of thinking. How can you ever progress your life if, all you're thinking about is quick wins and this and that? And these are the type of things that I started to think about. I started to connect. I started to, think about things logically. And addiction is an emotional thing. So logic never works. But emotionally, I even thought like, well, when I'm 30, do I want to have never owned a business? Do I want to have said that I've been in business for myself? Will I just be sort of just regular guy and just keep getting jobs? And like, where do I want to be by the time I'm 30? Will I be able to say that I've been in business for myself? Or will I be like everybody else in this book is, miserable with no money left? Like, I might think I'm different to all these people. I might think I've got this potential. I might think, I could do well in business, blah, 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 blah. But none of that mattered, did it then? Because I'd never been in business. And I wouldn't have known unless I'd quit gambling and bet on myself like I did. And now I know, look, I can start a business and I can fail and I can lose it and I can restart and I can succeed. And I'm maintaining that at the moment. So, I'm not getting complacent. I'm not saying I've succeeded, not at all. It is what it is. I'm just scraping by. But you look around the bookies and all you see is old men with no money. It's like, I didn't want to be like that. Eventually, I made the change. I made the decision. Right, I'm going to stop gambling. And good things are happening to me at time. And like those good things, I brought them upon myself because I gave myself those challenges. I got a job in recruitment. It did take me like 27 interviews. And eventually started my own business, went back to college, studied. I'm thinking about the long term, thinking about like, where do I want to be in 5 years? And then you think, well, how does gambling help that? How does gambling today help me get towards the goal of wherever I want to be in 5 years? And the answer is like, it doesn't. It just makes your 5-year goal one more day away from even getting started. So, like goals, they're so important. It's how we're wired up. It's essentially your framework and how you see the world. And when my goal became to get 100 customers to pay me £30 a month, that gives me a vision of a life where I'm independent, I'm self-sustainable, work my own hours, I pay all my own bills, I've got the control, and I've got that responsibility. And, I can strive towards that target. I can work hard to achieve that goal. And I'm building the discipline needed to, again, abstain from the gambling. And I've got the self-respect. I've got the satisfaction from running a business. Those are things that I could have never achieved while gambling, or I could have never achieved them while I was gambling because I'd never gone into business, and obviously I'd just lost all my money all the time still. And I could have never achieved these, the lessons that I've learned, how I feel about myself, the self-respect, the discipline, all that sort of stuff I would have never got as a gambling addict because you're just short wiring your brain at all times. So if you are sat there today, you got your phone in your hand, you're ready to make a bet, just imagine how good you'd feel if you did take control, you developed a little bit of discipline just to say no to that one thing, make that one decision. And once you've made that decision, once you've made that change, once you've stopped gambling, would that not give you ultimate control over everything else in life? Because trust me, once you've made that one change and overcome that adversity, and you feel as though you've sort of changed who you are, and you do change who you are when you stop gambling. If you're gambling every day, it affects who you are. And you make that one large sort of dramatic change and you commit to that, and then it makes committing to other changes much easier as well. And you'll find that you're stronger after you've left that bad habit behind. And, you can leave other bad habits behind. And the one thing about gambling is if you've been there, you don't have to go back there again. It sort of gives you a hole to run away from. And in the end, you'll be grateful that you hit that bottom, but you managed to get yourself out and you could take the lessons with you. So set a large goal. Don't let sort of self-doubt take over, because you'll be straight back down there and putting your belief back into the bookies rather than belief into yourself. Don't give your life up to chance. Again, like, why would you want to put your money on something that's X to 1 or 4 to 1 chance to win and da-da-da? It's like eventually somebody's going to lose, and even if you put the bet on yourself and you lost, at least you'd take a lesson from that and be humbled a little bit and da-da-da. This is just, again, putting your life up to chance. And I made that change today. So if anybody is struggling with gambling addiction and you do want to chat and you want to speak with me about my experience and how I stopped, then email me. It's carl@prospect27.co.uk, pitvillagepodcast.co.uk. I've got some official contact details coming soon for the podcast specifically, just to arrange interviews. I'm interested in interviewing people. And obviously, if there's any questions or comments from the general audience. So yeah, have a good day. A shout out to our sponsor, once again, Prospect27, pay monthly websites. Take a look, prospect27.co.uk. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next episode.